Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's podcast. Today, we're just going to do a little conversation with one of my clients, and he wants to share his story with you so that it's easier for our men out there to understand how useful coaching can be and what kind of things you might use it for and what was his experience like. So please welcome Todd Cabra. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
So good. So I don't ask a lot of my clients to come forward and talk about what it's like to get coaching and what coaching does for you, but you are very comfortable with your healing journey, and I know you've been very vocal about that with your
Yeah,
circle.
yeah,
So I wanted to invite you on here today to just give our men who are watching, because I've had a couple of my women on, to give them a little insight as to uh, just what the experience is like and the first step. How difficult is it to take that first step and go, okay, I might actually want to do something. I might actually want to get some help.
Well, I guess that depends on where you are in your trauma. Honestly, I think the one thing that I'm discovering through my journey is, there was probably room to discover myself and to get better when I thought things were good. So I think a lot of times what happens is things have to get really bad before you step outside and seek some direction. So I would say that question is, if you're enlightened enough to realize that no matter how healthy you might appear, you can always be better, then any time's a good time to get help. But something you said at the beginning was kind of interesting about men sharing their emotions. As I've kind of continued my journey, and it will always be a journey. I meet a lot of people and talk to a lot of people, and there's a lot of women too that are not really comfortable with sharing their emotions. I think it's a little bit of a misnomer or stereotype that men are bottled up and women are just an open book, and that's not really what I've experienced. In people that I've talked to, but for me, when I came to you, it was a bit of a crisis point. So, I didn't know until I started doing the work and getting to know myself more, that probably would have done me a world of good to reach out, a long time before I got to a crisis point. Um, and so, what I would say to anybody is, unless you're really good at inner engineering, and unless you really have a, a very strong understanding of heart and brain coherence, and you're loving yourself, um, then you can always look for direction. It's, to me, that's the one thing that I've learned is the funny thing, I guess, and you and I have talked about this, is what I thought was devastating and what I thought was kind of my personal emotional end of the world, and what I thought was probably the worst thing ever, is so far removed now in my life from what I know is important. And that what I was able to discover, and what you helped me discover, was you know really understanding myself and loving myself. I think the biggest value that I've had so far is understanding what my truth is. I would say that the most important thing that I've been able to do is, first, love myself. Second, know what my truth is. And then third, live your truth. Be honest about it. Um, and I think that's why people are emotionally introverted a lot of times, is you don't know what you don't know, and you feel what you think is real. And what I've discovered and what I've learned is, so much of what I believed was real is not real. It's fantasy, it's fiction, it's projection, it's you get caught up in dogma in this world, and you just go along. And I think that once you stop, and once you take the time to discover yourself, that's when you really know whether you're in crisis or not. And I think a lot of times we think we're in crisis, and because a lot of times we at least for myself, I based a lot of my worth, a lot of my opinions, a lot of my beliefs, a lot of everything on my external world. And the external world is pretty chaotic. And so I think that's what's maddening about the way I lived my life was I was trying to seek what I wanted to feel by other people acting certain ways or other people doing certain things. And it wasn't until, I had to look inside and just remove the noise and really focus on myself, that I even realized what I was even about. And, you can live many years on this planet thinking you know yourself and you don't know anything about yourself. So I think one of the greatest things that people can realize when they do this work is it's not as bad as you think it is. Um, it's hard to believe that. I mean, when I first went to you, I would have argued that it's way worse than it is. And sometimes that's the only thing you can feel. That's the only thing you're capable of feeling is just that pressure and that pain and that hurt and that confusion. And it all, in my opinion, it all comes from a place of needing to feel safe from others instead of making yourself feel safe.
So you hit on a really important point for our listeners that oftentimes we don't seek help until it's a crisis point. And for first responders, especially, there's a tendency to spend years going through symptoms of stress, anxiety, and overwhelm and post-traumatic stress and having all of these different coping strategies, these using sex, using drugs, using alcohol, spending, gambling, taking risks, like all of these really common things that people do. And we don't notice that those coping mechanisms are hurting us. And we don't notice that we're using them to cover something up. Everything just seems normal. Everything just seems okay because that's what the people around you are doing too.
Mm-hmm.
So mentioning that even when things feel okay, even when we think we're doing all right, that the likelihood is there that with help, with guidance, with skills and resources, you will find that life has more flavor, that life is more of an experience for you if you get that help early. It doesn't have to be in a time of crisis. It doesn't have to be when we're trying to decide if our life even has value to us.
Yeah.
So what was the experience of coaching like for you? How did you feel about the process?
I thought it was great in the sense that it at least shook me up enough in the beginning. It didn't, there's no magic potion, so the first meeting or two, I think the best feeling I got out of it was just not feeling alone. That's the first thing is you don't really solve your problems day one, but I think there's a absolute euphoric feeling of exhaling emotionally when you at least know you've started and you've connected with somebody that is going to try to understand where you're at. That was huge for me. Was I wasn't on this journey alone. And the irony is when you're in crisis, you really feel, as much as you feel like you want to distance yourself, as when you need community more than ever. But the funny part is as you heal, you're totally okay in your solitude. So it's a weird process, if you will, that, the coaching part is, I think it's necessary because you wouldn't be where you are if you had it all figured out. So you have to admit that, what, I need this right now. What's cool about it is when you get calm in yourself and you get beyond the crisis, then if you're willing to explore, it's a never-ending road. I mean, since you and I've started, I have expanded so far down the road with different practices and different things, meditations and things that I've discovered on my own through the coaching, if you will. So it's you get set, you get settled, you get direction, you get work to do, And when you get to that place, the fun part is when you get out of crisis, then you can get into creation. And I think the cool part is once you realize how much control you have over the life you live, then it becomes fun. It becomes something that you look forward to. In all aspects of your life. I would challenge someone to, if they say that, hey, I don't need help, I'm good, or whatever. One thing I always think about is we're supposed to be living a euphoric life, a life of ecstasy, mentally, emotionally, and everything. You mentioned all these other disciplines that are out there to try to find that. They're not all healthy, but they're there. And so, I look at it like this. If you think about the joy you had when you were 5 years old, versus your joy today, if you're living the way you wish you were living, your ecstasy should be greater today, because at 5 years old, you have all this joy and you're basically, being told what to do every part of your life, what to eat, when to go to bed. You're basically living a prison, but you're somehow joyful and exuberant. And as you get older, you get to make your own choices, and somehow you're not nearly as happy. So that tells you one thing: whether it's religion or alcohol or drug, whatever you've done in your life isn't working. So if you're getting older and less happy, then that to me is the first trigger that, hey, maybe I don't have this figured out. And that's the one thing that I've learned through my journey so far is I don't control anything outside of myself. And the only, I mentioned the word inner engineering, that's something I'm learning now. But our abilities to create and recreate, I think that's the biggest thing is whatever trauma you have, there are methods, there are processes, there are solutions to completely create whatever life you want, no matter what your past is, no matter if it's, and I'm not minimizing any stressor that's out there, PTSD from any, stressor that caused it. That's real. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying that, you should be able to have the ability to just wake up one day and not have these problems, but you do have the ability to wake up one day and recognize you have them. And you have the ability to wake up one day and say, I can change it. And honestly, if I'm living proof of anything at my age, I'm a different man today than I was yesterday, the day before, and unrecognizable to who I was 4 months ago. Um, and that's not a magic pill. It's a recognition. It's realizing that, hey, you know what? I recognize that this is not how I have to live. I recognize that there are methods out there. And, one of the greatest things about meeting with you, and one of the things that really catapulted me, was you held my hand, you walked me through the part that was just absolute chaos. But then we were able to communicate on these things. You shared these things with me, but you gave me the tools. And I would say that it's ultimately incumbent on whoever is going to go through any kind of program to do the work. It's nothing in this life happens if you don't do the work. But it's out there. And I think as you feel better, you have a natural energy about you to want to do more. I mean, who doesn't want to feel better? And what I find now is each day that I do my meditations, each day that I work on myself, you almost, it's almost like when you go on a diet or something, when you're making progress and, you worked out for a couple hours, you're less likely to want to eat bad because you don't want to ruin it. I find myself self-correcting, quicker. And, and that's the key too, because someone asked me the other day, actually, how are you always going to be in this mood? How you always going to, deal with this and everything. And, I told him quite simply, even the greatest teachers and gurus out there, whether it's Sadhguru, Dr. Dispenza, Mike Dooley, whoever it is, none of them will ever say they don't have bad days. I mean, bad things don't happen to them. I think the benefit of this coaching and the benefit of learning and the benefit of this program and everything that can extend from it is just how quickly you can get out of it. I think that's the way I look at it. I mean, you can't control the world. The world's going to disappoint you. I mean, that's just the way it is. But if you don't disappoint yourself, then you can live in whatever peace you want to live in.
Beautiful.
So
So the last question I'm going to ask you is, you kind of already touched on it. Once you're done with the program, everything's just fixed, right? That's what people want to hear.
no, no. Well, there's two things. You're never done with the program, because to me, that everything I do today is an extension of the program. So, and as much as I've progressed and grown, it doesn't mean I will never be without need of direction. So, I mean, I still see you, right? I mean, I see you whenever I'm good. I don't know that you're ever out of the program. And I think that's something that I made the first mistake of when I first reached out years ago, was I thought it was a destination, right? I thought that, hey, I'm going to go, we're going to figure out why I messed up. We're going to identify what's causing me to be a goof and whatever's going on with my life. And once I see it and recognize it, then I just won't do it and I'll be fine. Um, I mean, I think a lot of people think that it's like, hey, I'm going to go fix myself. You don't fix yourself. I don't think anybody fixes themselves. I think what you do is you discover yourself. And when you discover yourself, that discovery never ends. There's always going to be ways to discover deeper, to discover better, to discover more. So it doesn't end. It's a journey. The goal, in my opinion, my goal is to have less propensity to get out of control. Right. So the more I can stay in control of my life, the more I can control how I feel, the more I can control what I think, the more I can control my behaviors, the less the world bothers me. So when you're focusing on yourself, I mean, I guess when it ends is when you die, because as long as you have a breath in you and you wake up every day, then you have to focus on yourself. So I don't know. I mean, I think that the value of what you do is not, it doesn't end when I walk out of the session. It's always there. I mean, I texted you, I sent you messages, you're always in my ear. And so the program is phenomenal, but I think it takes the person in the program to want to feel different and feel better and be better. And I think the best thing I can say is it's 1000% possible. I mean, it's not, I don't think there's anybody out there, I don't care what they've been through, that can't create a mental peace with the program, with the steps, with the process, that is something that puts them on a different path, a path that they can be happy, they can be joyful, they can be loving, they can be, feel safe. I think that's the problem. I think that a lot of people feel is they don't feel safe. And I'll be honest to admit that I wasn't in that place where, I felt like I was going to hurt myself or anything at that place, but I didn't feel safe. And I think that level of feeling, unprotected, I guess, in this world creates anxiety. And the bigger the anxiety, the more fear. And then you just don't feel like there's a place you can feel safe. And if you're looking for it externally, I don't think you'll ever feel safe. So, that to me was what I think saved me on my path, was realizing how much control I have of myself.
Perfect. So much. So if you were to meet someone that was in trouble on a scale of 1 to 10, would you suggest that they reach out to me?
Oh, 10. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was somebody that was in trouble. So, I mean, yes. And I reached out to you, and I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that I don't really live in the past nearly like I used to. I really try to stay in the precious moment, at all times. But I know that what the past has been since I met with you is far greater than what it would have been. I know that my future is going to be far brighter than what it would have been. Um, because if you get to a point of crisis, you're in a destructive pattern. I mean, whether you choose to go see someone or not, you have to admit it's not working what you're doing. And sometimes it's as simple as that, right? It's like I have zero idea what I'm going to get out of this program, but this is what I do know. What I'm getting out of not doing this program is not working. And sometimes it's that simple. I mean, just take a step. Take one step. Go. See what you get out of it. I didn't go to you the first day expecting to feel like I do today. I didn't go to you the first day expecting to be able to actually rewrite my future. I didn't go to you that first day expecting that all of a sudden the things that haunted me and pulled me down into the depths of darkness was going to go away. I didn't know. What I did know was it was a hell of a lot better than where I was. And something had to change. And so my 1 to 10 would be 10 plus. Because what do you have to lose?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thank you. I mean, I'll do anything I can to shout from the mountaintop because, I'm grateful every time I see you. I mean, what do I tell you? I'm grateful for you, and I am. And, I think that anybody that takes the time to do the program will be grateful for you too.
It's a partnership. It's always a partnership.
It absolutely is.
Right. Thank you so much for being with us today. And
Yes.
I will touch base with you again. Thank you so much for